Hello and welcome. Israel held its national elections on Tuesday, but only one outcome is crystal clear. The country has shifted towards the hardline right. The two top contenders, Likud leader Benjamin Netanyahu and Kadima leader Tzipi Livni, are both claiming victory. Kadima, which supports the peace process with the Palestinians, barely got a majority of the vote, just one ahead of the right-wing Likud, which does not accept the two-state solution advocated by the new Obama administration in America. The most dramatic result was the rise of a far-right populist, Avigdor Lieberman, who heads the Yisrael Beitenu, or Israel Our Home party. That's now bigger than Israel's Labour Party, which over the past 6 decades was one of the country's major political players. Lieberman ran on one major proposition, questioning the loyalty of the country's 1.4 million Arab citizens. Well, with no single party having enough votes to form a government on its own, it will be weeks of haggling before a coalition is built. So today we ask, where does Israel go from here? And with a decidedly right-wing government in the works, is there any hope for peace with the Palestinians? Remember, you can join our conversation with your questions and comments. Log on to livestation.com/AJE, enter the chat room and take part. And of course, we also welcome your phone calls on the show. Well, today I'm joined by an Israeli statesman who's held some of the country's highest positions. Avraham Burg was Speaker of the Knesset from 1999 to 2003 and is also the former head of the World Zionist Organization and Jewish Agency for Israel. After decades in the heart of the Israeli establishment, he retired in 2004 and became a harsh critic of Israel's policies towards the Palestinians. He's the author of The Holocaust is Over, We Must Rise from Its Ashes, which argues that the memory of the Holocaust is creating unnecessary fear in Israel and making it impossible to achieve peace with the Palestinians. Thanks for being with us.
Hi, hello there.
Let me start by asking what this election has shown, the second lowest turnout in Israeli voter history, a clear vote for the right. What are the Israeli voters saying?
I have no idea. You actually describe it in your introduction. It is centric right alignment between Kadima of Tzipi Livni and Likud of Bibi Netanyahu, while the new star at our horizon, Avigdor Lieberman, is actually calling the shots, maybe literally, about the new Israeli discourse. And the new Israeli discourse expressed by Mr. Lieberman is a very complicated one, very nationalistic but more secular and less religious, resembles many of the infamous xenophobic European politicians like Blocher in Switzerland and Jean-Marie Le Pen in France and Haider in Austria. And at the third place, don't forget that Lieberman represents the new 20% population of Israel, the immigrants from a former Soviet Union, and he speaks the Putinite language. He speaks like a language of Putin that they understand. Take all the three together, and you have the new face of Israel.
Is it that there was a lack of choice for voters? Is it that the political scene is such now in Israel that people had no choice but to go towards the right?
It is not that easy. Let's remove from the table the problems and serious problems we have with the system. The system in Israel is a very bad system. So let's leave it aside, because I do not believe that as bad as the system is, it's a technical problem. We have much more a problem of a content. And Israelis this time voted against. It is not so much voting for this candidate or the other candidate as much as it was a voting against, and mainly against the Arabs. Is it the Palestinian Arabs, the other side of the border? Is it against Hamas, or is it against what is being perceived as the unloyal segment of the Israeli society or Israeli Palestinians? It is there, it's on the table. And what Avigdor Lieberman did, maybe deliberately, maybe subconsciously, he put on the table a new question. If up until today, in the last 40 years, the question on the table was the occupied territories, which means 67 question, or the 67 dilemma, now all of a sudden we have 48 on the table. The entire set of relations between Israelis and Arabs within Israel and outside of Israel, and this is a new horizon.
We have lots of people standing by with questions, so Larry in the UK first, your call please.
Yeah, hello. Riz, it's nice to talk to you. I've been following you since CNN. I would like to make a comment and then a question. I've been following the Israeli-Palestinian conflict for quite a while, and what I see on Western media is completely different from what I actually get from the history books. The fact is that Israel has completely been blocking the two-state solution. And given the rise of the political right in Israel, and given the obviously strong influence of the Zionist lobby in America, I would like to know exactly what Obama is capable of doing. I mean, he might want to make a change, but I doubt if politically he has any power, because something that has completely been ignored by all of Western media, by the BBC, by Sky News, by everybody, and Al Jazeera did a lot better in this extent, was actually to state clearly and unequivocally that it was Israel that violated the ceasefire on the 4th of November, and they did so primarily because Hamas was starting to push for a two-state solution.
Okay, Larry, let's get Mr. Berg's response then. Thanks for that question.
Thank you very much for your question. I'm not here to represent Obama because it's bigger than my sizes, so to say, but there is no doubt that the future of the peace in the Middle East lies in the kind of conversation will be developed between Avigdor Lieberman, the extreme Israeli right, and President Obama. And I have no doubt that since both sides, us and the Palestinians, already exhausted, maybe even our horns are locked and we cannot solve the problems ourselves. We need an external interference and an external intervention. And if President Obama will not move into the region, it will be impossible to solve the problem. And more than that, we will, for years, will continue this kind of I was first, you were first, he started, I started, which was, between me and you, is a kind of a very childish argument about who was first in history. Who cares? The question is who will be the first one to put the sword down and to make sure that no more kids and no more people or innocent people are being killed and no more hatred. And this is the challenge we really have. I care about history, I pay attention to history, but I'm not ready to dedicate my life to the past. I try to create a better future, and I hope that President Obama, with the European Union, will put such a pressure on both sides that eventually will bring us back to the table and resume some kind of reconciliation between the two very hostile, over-hostile sides.
Now, Ehud Barak's Labour Party took quite a bashing in these elections, losing about 25% of its seats in the Knesset. Considering it was such a main player for so long, what future does this? What sort of future does the Labour Party have?
Ehud Barak should not have ran on the first place because he's the wrong candidate. We had the kind of elections between two past prime ministers not very respected for their performances by the public, and one not experienced enough candidate like Tzipi Livni. And eventually the Labour was left behind, not only because the bad role its leader Ehud Barak played, but also because it actually betrayed its constituency in the last decade or couple of decades, because politics and democracy is about if somebody is the system, somebody is the government, somebody is the administration, somebody else to be out there to create an alternative. That if eventually the government fails to deliver its promises, the opposition will take over with its a newly or renewed hope. And if the Labour Party refused the role of going back to opposition, renew itself, reinvent itself, by the end of the day the people told it, listen, you're irrelevant to be the government because the prime minister you offer us is the one who failed big time and we do not want to see him anymore, and you failed as an opposition because you never assumed the responsibility of creating an alternative, and therefore go home. If the Labour will not go now to the opposition and regroup itself, we shall see the next elections with the total evaporation and the total expiration and disappearance of the Labour Party. So as for the next government, I hope they will have the stamina to stay outside and to go all the long way of restoring their own status. Otherwise, They will just disappear.
That's quite a pessimistic view from someone like yourself, who was such a leading light in the Labour Party, Mr. Berg.
It's a realistic, it's not pessimistic. It's a realistic. I, for many years, think about it, but the Labour didn't want to listen. If you add to this the fact that the Labour supported all the wrong decisions recently, which is the war in Lebanon, the war in Gaza, and the boycott or the veto on the Israeli Arab parties, you know that something wrong and something bitterly wrong is happening to this once dear party to me, and now not anymore. I didn't vote for them.
Okay, well, you know, we have a call on the line from Saudi Arabia. Let's squeeze that in before the break. Kadir, what would you like to ask?
Yeah, Riz. Hi, how are you, Riz?
Go ahead, please.
My question is regarding democracy. When the Hamas was elected member of Palestinian Authority from Gaza, it was elected fairly and the election was conducted fairly, though the Hamas shared the same views of Lieberman. So how the democracy will be turned in Israel today? How the world will see this democracy? Because Lieberman shares the almost same point of view as Hamas.
Okay, so an interesting point that's being made here by Kadir about the way democracy is seen and how it's judged on both sides, Mr. Berg.
I'm not a one who pushed for these elections within the Palestinian side. It was, I think, the George W. Bush administration who did not respect it the day after because they didn't like the outcome. And I think it was wrong to push it forward at the time in which the Palestinian Authority and the Palestinian people were not ready for this election. It was wrong to reject it and to refuse it. From my point of view, there is no problem, and I said it out time and again within the Israeli society in Hebrew, so I say it here again in English at Al Jazeera to you who talks to me from Saudi Arabia, which is for me an exciting experience. If Hamas is there, we should sit down and talk to them. Maybe it will not be easy, maybe it will be very complicated. Directly or indirectly, they are there and we are there to stay. Let's sit down and talk to each other, because talkings are having no funerals out of them, and shootings are always ending up with funerals. The only thing I will say about the equation you make between the Israeli side and the Hamas side, my feeling is that both societies, both the Israeli society and the Palestinian one, were hijacked, were kidnapped by a religious minority who actually stands against the motivation of the popular vote, the motivation of the majority of the people. And both sides are against two-state solution. The settlers would like to see the greater land of Israel according to the Jewish religious law, and Hamas is looking for the greater land of Palestine according to the Islamic Sharia. Both visions are wrong visions for the people, because without a division, without a good fence between the two neighbors, no good neighborhood will come to the world. And therefore, I would like to oppose both Hamas over there and settlers over our side, and make all the rationalistic people like you and me sitting down and talking to each other for a kind of a solution for our children.
Well, we have more questions. I'm just going to point out from our live station chat room, I was just printed out a couple of questions here. Chango in Phoenix, who says, why was the voter turnout so low? And a viewer by the name of GS in the chat room, if the turnout was so low, 65%, then it means that there is a silent majority in Israel that has not identified with itself with any of the parties. We'll discuss more of this in just a moment. Now, before we take a short break, we'd like to take a poll in our chat room there on today's topic. The question is, are Israel's election results a vote against peace? You can cast your ballot in there in the live station chat room, and we'll have the results when we come back. As we pause, let me remind you, you can join that by just going to livestation.com and entering that chat room. You'll see the debate taking place. We'll be right back.